My name is Amina. One day, I saw a message on my husband's phone that made my heart sink. It was from my best friend, and it was clear they were more than just friends. My mind raced. How could they do this to me? I felt angry and sad. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what. I decided to hire a private investigator named Kofi to find out the truth. Kofi was smart and kind, and he promised to help me. Kofi and I spent a lot of time together. We watched my husband and my best friend taking pictures and writing down notes. As the days went by, Kofi and I started to talk about more than just the investigation. We shared stories and laughed together. One evening, Kofi showed me a picture of my husband holding hands with my best friend. It's hard to see, but I was glad to know the truth. Kofi put his hand on mine to comfort me. I felt a warmth spread through me, different from the pain I had been feeling. The more time I spent with Kofi, the more I realized how much I liked him. He was gentle and understanding, always there to listen. I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, I was beginning to fall for him. But I couldn't forget why we were spending time together. My husband and my best friend had betrayed me, and I needed to decide what to do next. Should I confront them? Should I leave my husband? And what about Kofi? One night, Kofi and I were looking through more evidence when he turned to me and said, "Amina, you deserve to be happy. You deserve someone who treats you well." His words made my heart beat faster. Just as I was about to respond, my phone rang. It was my husband. He sounded worried and asked me to come home right away. My mind raced with questions. Why was he so anxious? Did he know what I had discovered? My heart pounded as I grabbed my things and headed home, with Kofi following close behind. I didn't know what was waiting for me at home, but I knew one thing: my life was about to change forever. When I got home, my husband, Sefu, was pacing in the living room. He looked up as I walked in, his eyes filled with worry. "Amina, we need to talk," he said. Kofi stayed outside, watching through the window. I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. "What is it, Sefu?" I asked, my voice steady. Sefu took a deep breath. "I know I've been distant lately. I've been dealing with things. But I want us to fix this. I love you, Amina." My heart twisted with anger and sadness. How could he say he loved me after what he did? But I needed to stay calm. "What things, Sefu?" I asked. Before he could answer, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to see my best friend, Zainab, standing there. Her face turned pale when she saw me. "Amina, I can explain," she stammered. Kofi, who was hiding in the shadows, moved closer, ready to step in if needed. I took a deep breath and turned back to Sefu. "Explain what, Zainab?" I said, my voice trembling. Zainab looked at Sefu, then at me. "Sefu and I, we've been seeing each other. It was a mistake, Amina. I never wanted to hurt you." Sefu stepped forward. "Amina, it's true. But it's over. I want to make things right with you." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I had so many questions, so much anger, but I didn't want to break down in front of them. I turned to Zainab. "How could you do this to me?" I whispered. She looked down, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Amina. I don't know what I was thinking." Just then, Kofi walked in. "Amina, I think we should go," he said gently. His presence gave me strength. I nodded and followed him out, leaving Sefu and Zainab behind. Outside, Kofi put his arm around me. "You did well, Amina," he said softly. I looked up at him, my heart heavy with pain but also with a glimmer of hope. "What do I do now, Kofi?" I asked. Kofi smiled gently. "We take it one step at a time. You're not alone in this." As we walked away from my home, I realized that my life was indeed changing. With Kofi by my side, I felt a spark of something new, something that might just be the start of a new chapter in my life. Days passed, and I stayed with my aunt in the village. I needed time to think. Kofi called me every day, checking in on me, making sure I was okay. His kindness and patience meant the world to me. One afternoon, as I sat under the big mango tree in my aunt's yard, Kofi arrived. He brought a small bouquet of wildflowers. "I thought you might like these," he said, handing them to me with a warm smile. I took the flowers, feeling a blush creep up my cheeks. "Thank you, Kofi," I said softly. "You didn't have to do this." "I wanted to," he replied, sitting down beside me. "How are you feeling?" I sighed, looking at the flowers in my hand. "I don't know. Part of me is still so angry and hurt. But another part of me is relieved. I feel free, in a way." Kofi nodded, understanding in his eyes. "It's okay to feel that way. You deserve happiness, Amina. And you'll find it." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Sefu. "I need to see you. Please come home," it read. My heart raced. I showed the message to Kofi. "Do you want to go?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "I don't know," I admitted. "What if he just wants to hurt me again?" Kofi took my hand in his. "Whatever you decide, I'll be here. You're not alone." I decided to go. I needed closure. Kofi offered to drive me, and I agreed. As we neared my house, my nerves grew. Kofi gave my hand a reassuring squeeze before I got out of the car. Sefu was waiting on the porch, looking anxious. "Amina, thank you for coming," he said. "What do you want, Sefu?" I asked, keeping my distance. I wanted to apologize. "I know I hurt you deeply. I can't change what I did, but I want to try and make things right." "How?" I asked, crossing my arms. "I'll give you the house, the car, everything. I just want you to be happy, even if it means letting you go," Sefu said, tears in his eyes. I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to believe him, but another part knew I couldn't trust him again. "Thank you, Sefu," I said quietly. "But I need time to think." As I turned to leave, Zainab appeared. "Amina, I want to apologize too. I never meant for things to go this far. I hope one day you can forgive me." I didn't respond. Instead, I walked back to Kofi, who was waiting by the car. "Let's go," I said, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. As we drove away, I looked at Kofi. "Thank you for being here," I said. "Always," he replied, giving me a warm smile. For the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful. I didn't know what the future held, but with Kofi by my side, I was ready to face it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of emotions. Sefu kept his promise and transferred the house and car to me. It felt strange to have these things, knowing they came from him, but it also felt like a new beginning. One evening, Kofi and I were sitting in my backyard, watching the sunset. "How are you feeling about everything?" he asked, breaking the comfortable silence. "I feel lighter," I said, leaning back in my chair. "I never thought I could move on from something like this, but here I am." Kofi smiled. "You're stronger than you know, Amina." Just as I was about to respond, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Sefu. "Can we meet one last time? I have something important to tell you." I showed the message to Kofi. "What do you think?" I asked. "It's up to you," he said. "If you think it will help you find closure, then you should go. But you don't have to do it alone." I decided to meet Sefu. The next day, I went to our old favorite spot by the river. Sefu was already there, looking more tired and worn out than I had ever seen him. "Amina, thank you for coming," he said as I approached. "What is it, Sefu?" I asked, keeping my distance. "I just wanted to say goodbye properly," he said. "And to tell you that I'm leaving town. I need to start over somewhere else." I felt a mix of relief and sadness. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said. Sefu nodded. "I want you to know that I truly am sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I loved you, Amina." "Goodbye, Sefu," I said, turning to leave. As I walked away, I felt a sense of finality. It was really over. I could move on with my life. When I got home, Kofi was waiting for me. "How did it go?" he asked, concern in his eyes. "He's leaving town," I said. "It's really over." Kofi hugged me. "I'm glad you're finding peace, Amina." In the weeks that followed, Kofi and I grew even closer. He was my rock, always there to support me. One evening, as we were watching a movie, he turned to me and said, "Amina, I need to tell you something." I looked at him, feeling my heart race. "What is it?" "I've fallen in love with you," he said softly. "I know this is sudden, but I can't keep it to myself anymore." Tears filled my eyes, but this time they were tears of happiness. "I love you too, Kofi," I whispered. As we shared our first kiss, I felt a sense of joy and hope I hadn't felt in a long time. My life had been turned upside down, but now it was finally heading in a direction filled with love and trust. But deep down, I knew the journey wasn't over. There would still be challenges and moments of doubt. Yet, with Kofi by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came next. My story was still unfolding, and for the first time, I was excited to see what the future held. In the following weeks, Kofi and I continued to build our relationship. He was sweet, attentive, and always knew how to make me smile. But there was a nagging feeling in the back of my mind, a small voice that made me wonder if things were too good to be true. One day, I decided to surprise Kofi by bringing him lunch at his office. When I arrived, I saw him talking and laughing with another woman. They were standing close, and the way he looked at her made my heart sink. I took a deep breath and walked in. "Kofi," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. He turned, surprised to see me. "Amina, what are you doing here?" "I brought you lunch," I said, holding up the bag. The woman beside him smiled. "Oh, you must be Amina. Kofi has told me so much about you." I forced a smile. "Nice to meet you." After a few awkward moments, the woman left, and Kofi turned to me. "Thank you for the lunch," he said, taking the bag. "That was really thoughtful." "Who was that?" I asked, unable to hide my curiosity. "Just a colleague," he said quickly. "We were discussing a project." I wanted to believe him, but something felt off. Over the next few days, I noticed little things. Kofi would get mysterious phone calls and texts, and he would often be unavailable without explanation. My heart ached with the possibility that he might be hiding something from me. One evening, I decided to follow him. He said he had a late meeting, but I needed to know the truth. I saw him go into a fancy restaurant, and through the window, I saw him sitting with the same woman from his office. They were laughing and holding hands. Tears filled my eyes as I watched them. How could he do this to me? I turned and walked away, feeling the familiar sting of betrayal. When I got home, I broke down in tears. It felt like history was repeating itself. The next day, I confronted Kofi. "I saw you with her," I said, my voice trembling. "How could you do this to me?" Kofi looked shocked. "Amina, it's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I demanded. "Because it looks exactly like what Sefu did to me." He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "I didn't want to hurt you, Amina. I never meant for this to happen. I care about you, but..." "But what?" I interrupted. "You're just like him, Kofi. You're a player." "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Sorry isn't enough," I said, my voice breaking. "I trusted you." As Kofi left, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I had been so close to finding happiness, only to have it ripped away again. I sat down, trying to collect my thoughts. Later that night, I received a call from an unknown number. "Amina, it's Zainab," the voice said. "Zainab, why are you calling me?" I asked, confused. "I heard about Kofi," she said. "I'm really sorry. I know I hurt you, but I want to help if I can." I was silent for a moment. "Why would you want to help me?" "Because I owe you that much," she replied. "And because I still care about you." I didn't know if I could trust her, but I was too tired to argue. "What do you have in mind?" "Meet me tomorrow," she said. "We can talk more then." I agreed, hanging up the phone with a sense of trepidation. I didn't know what Zainab wanted, but I knew I needed all the support I could get. The next day, I met Zainab at a quiet cafe. She looked nervous, but determined. "Amina, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she began. "But I want to make things right." "How?" I asked, skeptical. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," she said. "I want to help you move on, to find peace." I studied her for a moment, trying to gauge her sincerity. "Okay," I said slowly. "What do you suggest?" Zainab took a deep breath. "Let's focus on you, on what makes you happy. Forget about Sefu and Kofi. Let's rebuild your life." Her words struck a chord. Maybe it was time to focus on myself, to find my own path without relying on anyone else. For the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of hope. As we sat in the cafe, sipping our drinks, Zainab seemed hesitant. "Amina, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice trembling. "What is it?" I asked, feeling a knot form in my stomach. She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "Sefu, he paid Kofi and me to test you." I stared at her in shock. "What do you mean?" Zainab took a deep breath. "Sefu was convinced you didn't truly love him. He thought that if you were given the chance, you would leave him for another man. So he came up with a plan. He paid me to start an affair with him, and he paid Kofi to get close to you." I felt like the ground was slipping away beneath me. "So, everything, all of this, was just a test?" Zainab nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Amina. I didn't want to do it, but Sefu promised us both a lot of money. And I thought you would never find out." I was speechless. Anger, betrayal, and sadness washed over me all at once. "How could you do this to me, Zainab? You were my best friend." "I know," she whispered. "And I hate myself for it. But I need you to know that Kofi started to genuinely care about you. It wasn't all fake." I felt a bitter laugh escape my lips. "It doesn't matter now, does it? You both betrayed me." She reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled away. "Amina, please. Let me make it right. I want to help you move on, for real this time." I stood up, shaking my head. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Zainab. But thank you for telling me the truth." As I walked out of the cafe, I felt a mix of emotions. I needed time to process everything. Sefu had orchestrated this entire nightmare, and I had fallen right into his trap. Back at home, I sat on my porch, thinking about everything that had happened. Just then, Kofi appeared, looking remorseful. "Amina, I heard you spoke to Zainab." "Yes," I said coldly. "I know everything now." "Amina, I'm sorry. I started this because of the money, but my feelings for you became real. Please believe me," he pleaded. I looked at him, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "How can I believe anything you say, Kofi? You were part of this from the beginning." "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said. "But I truly care about you, Amina. Please give me a chance to prove it." I shook my head, feeling tears in my eyes. "I need time, Kofi. I need to think about everything." As Kofi left, I sat alone, trying to make sense of it all. My heart was broken, but I knew I needed to find a way to move forward. For now, I had to focus on healing and figuring out what I wanted for myself. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I was determined to find my own path, free from lies and betrayal. It was time to rebuild my life on my terms.